I'm Jimmy. I'm the host of the show, and thank you for joining me at the end of the final full day of the presidency of Donald Jennifer Trump. It's the end of an era. Right now, Trump is packing up his golf clubs, Barron, and all the fake Melanias, too. I have to say, I'm not sure what to feel right now. It feels like the night before my wedding and my divorce all rolled up into one. In just 13 hours, Donald Trump will be shoveling loaded potato skins into his mouth by the pool at Mar-a-Lago, and Mike Pence will be off battling gays in space. Trump spent his last day on the job, just like every other, watching people talk about him on TV and screening Eric's calls, trying to figure out which filing cabinet Melania is hiding in. And he gave a farewell speech. YouTube allowed him to release what turned out to be a poorly constructed, boastful, heavily edited speech in which he wished the incoming administration luck, but never mentioned Joe Biden by name. He thinks if he doesn't say his name, he won't appear, like he's Beetle Joe or something. Other than that, this was, again, Trump's official schedule for the day. President Trump will work from early in the morning until late in the evening. He will make many calls and have many meetings. I'm going to miss that. I love this fairy tale that he works hard, even though he's done literally nothing other than try to overturn the election over the last 2 months. I mean, like nothing. Over at Fox News, they're still pumping that sweet, sweet smoke up this man's ass.
You know, they'll criticize President Trump, but no one can argue he is a worker. You know, he doesn't drink alcohol. He stays up late at night. He watches every show.
Is watching every show work? If so, Netflix owes me a lot of money. You know who else stays up late, doesn't drink alcohol, and watches every show? My 6-year-old. Donald Trump does not work hard. In his speech, he said, "We did what we came here to do and so much more." But did we? Let's check that out. You know, as we wrap up the final hours of this interminable presidency, let's go through the campaign promises he made 4 very long years ago. When he was running for president, Trump promised to repeal Obamacare and replace it with something much better. No repeal. He failed on that, thank God, and he never even presented a plan to replace it. So F is his grade. Trump promised to build a wall, an impenetrable wall, and have Mexico pay for it. Our border with Mexico spans almost 2,000 miles. Trump built 40 miles of easily climbable wall, and we paid for it. F. He said he would invest $550 billion in infrastructure and create an infrastructure fund. Nope and nope. F. He relentlessly criticized Obama for playing golf and said, "I won't have time to play golf. I'll be in the White House working my ass off." Well, while in office, Donald Trump spent 298 days at the golf course at a cost of $144 million taxpayer dollars. So F you. Trump promised he'd bring back manufacturing. Not much action there, though he did sell a lot of hats and my pillows, so I give him a D+. Trump said, "I will make no cuts to Social Security." He tried to make cuts, but the Senate didn't pass them. And in fairness to him, he did try to take money from old people. So let's give him a C. Trump said many times he'd appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Hillary Clinton. F. He promised to close the parts of the internet where ISIS is. I'll give him some credit for that. He did get kicked off Twitter and Facebook, and he got Parler shut down. So let's give him a B+ just to be nice. And while this wasn't a campaign promise, he said about COVID, "We have it totally under control. It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear." That was last February. Since then, 400,000 Americans have disappeared. F. Now, he did keep his promises to defund Planned Parenthood and remove the United States from the Paris Climate Accord, so give him an A-hole for that. Oh, and the Space Force. Don't forget he created the Space Force. And hopefully tomorrow at noon, he will board a Space Force craft and rocket to Mars, never to be seen or heard from again. So Trump leaves office with a grade point average of F+ and a string of lies that will never be broken. And also a bunch of questionable pardons. Trump is expected to issue about 100 pardons tonight, and he was reportedly calling people to give them the news, the people he pardoned. He loves this so much. He has a pardon harden right now. One notable name who's been angling for a pardon is Joe Exotic, the Tiger King. Why he thinks Trump would pardon him, I have no idea, but Team Tiger has spared no expense preparing for his possible release.
We've delivered everything that I wanted to do on this project, I am absolutely confident that we are going to receive the pardon tomorrow. We've got hair, makeup, wardrobe. Trust me, anything you can think of, we have it, including a doctor and also a mental health expert.
Now they get him a mental health expert. When he was in the cage with the tiger or singing about Carol Baskin killing her husband, then there was no mental care expert to be found. But now, I have to hand it to him, though. They really put together an exit fit for a king.
They also have a limo ready to pick him up from the prison in Fort Worth, Texas, and take him to a secure location.
Joe's biggest thing is he can't wait to get out, as you can imagine. And he doesn't want anyone to see him until his hair is done.
Is it sad that the only thing I want now is to see Joe Exotic without his hair done? The thinking currently is that Trump will not pardon himself or his children. His lawyers begged him not to try to pardon himself because they felt it would get him into deeper legal trouble. So they gave him one of those, those get out of jail free cards from Monopoly? They told him it was real and it worked like a charm. Looking back, I wonder if this was all worth it to him. I mean, 6 years ago, we were all perfectly fine to let him keep bumbling around New York pretending to be a billionaire. He could have been hosting golf tournaments, making TGI Fridays commercials, playing this role he created of the wealthy tycoon. He could have bought a couple of new helicopters, a couple new wives, and we would have all just rolled our eyes and been like, oh, that's Donald Trump. Probably would have landed a sweet gig as the cranky TV judge on some hooded celebrity pie-eating competition. That's where Donald Trump belonged. But now, most of the country despises him. Most of the world despises him. We found out he pays no taxes. He has no money. He's likely to face criminal charges in New York. Nobody will do business with him. Can't host a golf tournament. Can't even operate a carousel in his hometown anymore. His wife hates him. His kids are screwed. He's got to hole up in that cheesecake factory with a golf course in Florida he lives in for the rest of his life. He won't be able to invite centerfolds up to his office anymore. And generally, he will be thought of as the worst president in the history of the United States. So was it worth it? For him, it probably was. But it's over now. Could you imagine if Obama didn't go to Trump's inauguration? We would have never heard the end of it. Instead of being gracious, Trump is throwing himself a send-off party at Joint Base Andrews during a pandemic, of course, and he's so desperate for this party to be big, they're letting people bring up to 5 guests. I've never even heard of a +5. It's like they're planning a bar mitzvah for the least popular boy in Hebrew school. This tells you all you need to know about the trouble they're having with the guest list. They're inviting people that Trump fired, like John Kelly. Anthony Scaramucci got an invite, and he said no. And you know who else won't be there? Mike Pence. The vice poodle is planning to attend Biden's inauguration. According to his team, it would be too complicated logistically for him to go to both events, so he's going to the inauguration instead of Trump's going away party. Pence posted several photos of his time in office today, none of them with Trump. You think they'll ever see each other again? I doubt it. I mean, how does Pence even leave it with Trump? Does he write him a letter? Do they wave in the hallway? Maybe he texts him a poop emoji? I don't know. Either way, this is not how Donald Trump wanted to go out. He was planning a procession and a flyover. Instead, he got an insurrection and a comb-over. Meanwhile, the Biden administration today announced their new ethics plan. Apparently, the plan is to have ethics. So that's a step in the right direction. I'm interested to see how the rest of the world handles it. It's like when your friend breaks up with a boyfriend that you didn't like. You want to say, good, I'm glad you broke up with that psycho, but you don't because you're afraid they might get back together. In happier news, Tiffany Trump announced her engagement on, of all days, today. She posted the news on social media because, unlike most of her family, she still can. And apparently, the engagement happened at the White House. One thing about this family, they really know how to read the room. I love to imagine this guy, her fiance, going into Trump's office to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. And Trump's like, which daughter? And he says, Tiffany? And he's like, not now, I'm pardoning Little Wayne. By the way, before we seal him back up in his coffin for a while, I do want to mention, just to put another cherry on this banana split of hypocrisy we've been force-fed for the last 4 years. It turns out, after flying around the country screaming about the evils of provisional ballots for the last 10 months, Rudy Giuliani voted with, guess what, a provisional ballot. Isn't that something? The irony is thicker than the Grecian formula oozing from his pores. It's going to be interesting to see what Rudy does next. It'll be interesting to see what any of them do next. They say that outgoing Trump staffers are having trouble finding jobs. According to one former West Wing official, no one wants to touch them. They're toxic. So now that their time in the White House is over, the question is, what will these people do? Fortunately, I am in possession of one magic crystal ball. I bought it on Etsy. It's really a good one, too. So now let's find out what the future holds for members of the Trump administration. Here we are. Oh, that is White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. Kayleigh will go back to her job working as a wax figure of Paris Hilton at Madame Tussauds in Orlando, Florida. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani signs on as foreman for Four Seasons Total Landscaping, where he is later fired when a homeowner catches him masturbating in a shrub. Former Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders racks up a record of 14-1 fighting on UFC Island, her only loss coming to a juvenile elephant that was forced to swim to shore when a circus ship sank. White House senior advisor Stephen Miller wrote and stars in a one-man show called If Hitler Was Bald, which he performs at demolition derbies throughout South Dakota. Former Housing and Urban Development Secretary Ben Carson can now be found asleep in his car for the foreseeable future. Former counselor to the president Kellyanne Conway returned to the White House, where she scares crows out of the Rose Garden. Former Press Secretary Sean Spicer found work as CMO of FurFest, the world's third largest furry convention taking place June 14th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. After the divorce, First Lady Melania Trump changed her last name back to Kunkelberry and married Kid Rock at the bottom of a gravel quarry in Livonia, Michigan. Eric Trump tried to create an eBay account to sell napkins his father wiped his mouth with, but gave up when he was unable to come up with an original username. Donald Jr. became a safari guide in Eastern Africa, where he was torn apart by baboons. His girlfriend, Kimberly Guilfoyle, did not attend the funeral. First daughter Ivanka Trump went on to be named Miss January in the Goya Beans' coveted Beanie Bikini calendar. After her split with Jared, she moved to Branson, Missouri, where she's currently married to a Donald Trump impersonator. On the day Jared Kushner was to be arrested, he fled to Switzerland, where, according to local legend, he roams the woods at night, calling out to teenagers to murder their parents in their sleep. Space Force Commander Mike Pence hijacked a top-secret rocket and blasted off to the planet Pluto, inhabited by jellyfish creatures who worship him for his almost translucent white skin. And as for former President Donald Trump, on the night of Joe Biden's inauguration, he was visited by three ghosts who convinced him to abandon his plans to run again in 2024, and Donald John Trump was better than his word. He became as good a friend, as good an ex-president, and as good a man as the city knew. And to little Marco Rubio, he became like a father. From then on, it was said of old Orange Belly that he learned how to keep Election Day in his heart all year round. God bless us, everyone. Nah, I'm just screwing around. Trump died of gout in Guantanamo. He will be missed.
Jimmy Kimmel Live. This is ridiculous.